Ethan Walker wasn't just poor. He was a reminder to his classmates of everything they didn't want to be. At Westbridge Academy, a private high school filled with the children of lawyers, surgeons, and CEOs, Ethan stuck out like a cracked window on a brand new sports car. His sneakers were scuffed, his jeans were always a little too short at the ankles, and his hand-me-down backpack had a broken zipper he kept fixing with safety pins. The other kids noticed. They always noticed. When he walked into the cafeteria, conversations dipped. When he raised his hand in class, eyes rolled. He wasn't just the scholarship kid, he was the punchline. What they didn't see was the life Ethan lived outside those polished hallways. A 2-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of mildew. A mom who came home past midnight from double shifts at the hospital, her hands raw from sanitizer. Dinners that were usually instant noodles or whatever was on sale at the corner store. But Ethan carried all of that quietly. He refused to let pity show. The problem was, his silence was mistaken for weakness. The mockery was casual, cruel, and constant. At lunch, kids laughed at his brown paper bag meals. "Bro, is that bologna again?" they'd say, while waving their sushi platters in his face. On school spirit days, when everyone wore expensive custom outfits, Ethan showed up in a faded hoodie. "Guess Goodwill had a sale," someone snickered. Even teachers weren't immune. They didn't mock him outright. But when group projects came around, they let others push him aside. When Ethan suggested ideas, smart, creative, ahead of their time, they were ignored until a wealthier student repeated the same thing and got praise. It wasn't just about bullying. It was a system, an unspoken rule. Ethan Walker doesn't count. The humiliation carved deep scars. Ethan started skipping the cafeteria altogether, retreating to the library. He'd sit in the farthest corner with books stacked high, entrepreneurship, coding, biographies of visionaries who'd built empires from scratch. Men and women who had been told no and turned it into watch me. In those books, Ethan found hope. He started to imagine a life where he wasn't the butt of the joke, but the one writing the rules. Graduation was supposed to be a celebration. For Ethan, it felt like a final insult. The stadium was buzzing with proud families in suits and dresses. BMWs and Teslas filled the parking lot. His classmates posed for photos with brand new watches, designer heels, and promises of Ivy League futures. Ethan stood in line in a wrinkled gown, cap too loose on his head. When his name was called, the cheers were almost non-existent, except for one voice. In the back row, his mom clapped harder than anyone else in the stadium. She had come straight from work, still wearing her nurse's scrubs, exhaustion etched into her face, but her pride was unshakable. For a split second, Ethan smiled, but the moment ended quickly when he heard a whisper behind him. "Bet he ends up flipping burgers." The caps flew into the air. Everyone cheered. Ethan didn't throw his. He just held it tight in his hands, staring at the tassel, feeling a fire ignite inside him. That night, as others partied, Ethan made himself a promise. The next time they hear my name, it won't be as the class loser. It'll be as the man who proved them all wrong. After graduation, reality hit like a brick wall. No trust fund, no shiny acceptance letters, no safety net. Ethan had bills to pay, a mom to support, and dreams that didn't fit into his tiny apartment. He worked wherever he could, delivering pizzas in the heat, scrubbing offices at 2 a.m., bussing tables while classmates drank cocktails at the same restaurants. His clothes smelled like grease and cleaning supplies. His hands were cracked, his sleep nearly non-existent. But Ethan had a secret. He worked wherever he could, delivering pizzas in the heat, scrubbing offices at 2 a.m., bussing tables while classmates drank cocktails at the same restaurants. His clothes smelled like grease and cleaning supplies. His hands were cracked, his sleep nearly non-existent. But Ethan had a secret. It was lonely. There were nights he collapsed onto his keyboard, waking with key imprints on his face. Nights when his stomach growled because he chose software subscriptions over dinner. But Ethan pushed forward, not for revenge, not even for recognition. He was chasing freedom. 1 year turned into 2, 2 into 3. Then came the break. A simple app Ethan coded in his bedroom, a tool designed to help small businesses manage sales, caught fire. A few clients became dozens. Dozens became hundreds. Soon, investors came calling. Ethan's little side hustle turned into a thriving startup. Within 3 years, his company was generating millions. By the time he turned 24, Ethan Walker's net worth had soared past $100 million. The kid they laughed at, ignored, and dismissed was now wealthier than the entire class combined. But Ethan didn't post flashy cars on Instagram. He didn't buy a mansion on a hill. He kept his life quiet, focused, disciplined. Because deep down, he knew life had a funny way of circling back. And then one morning, it happened. Buried between spam emails and business offers sat a subject line. Westbridge High 5-year reunion. Ethan stared at it. A wave of old memories crashed over him. The laughter, the whispers, the humiliation. He almost deleted it. But then, curiosity tugged. He opened it. The email was cheerful, inviting, dripping with nostalgia. But Ethan knew better. This wasn't about reconnecting. They didn't miss him. They wanted to see if the class loser had finally fallen into the gutter they predicted for him. But they were in for a surprise. Ethan closed the laptop slowly, a smile tugging at his lips. For the first time in years, he looked forward to seeing his old classmates. Not because he wanted revenge, but because he knew the truth. And the truth had a way of shocking people when it finally came to light. The night of the reunion was buzzing long before Ethan arrived. Westbridge High had rented out the fanciest ballroom in town. Chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, champagne flutes clinked in the air, and laughter echoed through the space like it was still the hallways of high school. The graduates walked in one by one, dressed sharp, trying to outdo each other. Expensive watches flashed, luxury cars pulled up in a steady line outside, and old cliques quickly reformed like time had never moved. Inside, people bragged about promotions, high-rise apartments, and vacations in Europe. Old insecurities resurfaced too, everyone measuring themselves against the person they once were, desperate to prove they'd made it. And of course, they all waited for one name: Ethan Walker, the class loser, the scholarship kid. They hadn't seen him in 5 years. And for many, the anticipation wasn't about reconnecting. It was about laughing. They expected to see him working some dead-end job, looking tired, beaten, and small. As the night went on, his absence became a topic of conversation. "Think he even got the invite?" one of the old football jocks joked, swirling his drink. "He's probably too embarrassed to show up," another smirked. "Last I heard, dude was delivering pizzas. Bet he still is." Laughter rolled through the circle. Some pretended to feel bad. "Ah, come on. Don't be too harsh," Maybe he's doing okay, working at, like, Walmart or something. It was cruel, but it was the same tone they'd always used. The same superiority, the same mockery disguised as casual banter. Nobody expected Ethan to walk through those doors. But then he did. The ballroom doors opened quietly, and Ethan stepped in. No spotlight, no announcement, just calm confidence. He wasn't in flashy designer brands, but everything he wore screamed success. A tailored navy suit, polished shoes, a subtle watch worth more than most cars in the parking lot. His posture was straight, his expression calm, his presence undeniable. At first, nobody recognized him. He looked different, stronger, sharper, like he carried the weight of the world, but had mastered it. Then whispers started. "Wait, is that Ethan? No way. That can't be him. Holy, he actually showed up." Heads turned. Conversations stalled. All the noise in the ballroom seemed to drop an octave as people tried to process what they were seeing. Ethan didn't rush. He walked in slowly, with the kind of quiet confidence that couldn't be faked. The same boy they once mocked now looked like a man who could buy the entire ballroom without blinking. As Ethan made his way through the crowd, old faces emerged. The jocks who used to shove him in hallways now slapped each other nervously, unsure whether to laugh or look away. The girls who once giggled about his cheap clothes suddenly adjusted their dresses, stealing glances they hoped he wouldn't notice. A few tried to act friendly. "Ethan? Man, long time no see. You look, good, bro." But Ethan knew the tone. It wasn't warmth. It was shock mixed with guilt. He didn't linger. He nodded politely, offered a small smile, and kept moving. His silence was louder than any comeback could have been. The reunion had planned a segment, introducing success stories from the graduating class. Alumni stood on stage, sharing career highlights, earning polite applause. When Ethan's name wasn't on the list, a few classmates chuckled. "Guess he doesn't have anything to share," someone whispered. But then the host, the same old principal, who had once dismissed Ethan as unmotivated, looked toward the back of the room. His voice wavered. We have someone here tonight who, well, we didn't expect. Please welcome Ethan Walker." The room went silent. Ethan walked to the stage slowly. Each step echoed like thunder in the stillness. People craned their necks. Eyes widened. Phones slid discreetly out of pockets, recording the moment. He stood at the podium, adjusting the mic, looking out at the sea of faces. The same faces that once dismissed him, laughed at him, wrote him off. He didn't need to say much. His presence was enough. But when he did speak, his voice was steady, calm, and commanding. Ethan didn't brag. He didn't list numbers or flaunt wealth. Instead, he told a story. He spoke about working nights after graduation, delivering pizzas, cleaning offices, studying on an old laptop until his eyes burned. He painted the picture of struggle so clearly that the room couldn't look away. Every insult, every dismissal, every humiliation. He had carried it, and he had turned it into fuel. Then, with a small smile, he revealed the truth. He wasn't just doing okay. He was the founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company. His app had transformed businesses nationwide. Investors trusted him with fortunes. His net worth had crossed 9 figures before he turned 25. The room froze. The laughter died. The same people who once mocked his brown paper bag lunches, now realized the man before them could buy their companies outright. Shock rippled through the crowd. Some clapped, others stared in stunned silence. A few looked down at their drinks, ashamed. The jocks who mocked him shifted uncomfortably. The girls who laughed at his hoodies suddenly looked regretful. And the so-called friends who ignored him tried to catch his eye, desperate for a scrap of acknowledgement. But Ethan wasn't here for revenge. He wasn't here to rub their faces in his success. He was here for something else, something deeper. And that part of the story, the real twist, was just beginning. After Ethan's revelation, the reunion atmosphere completely shifted. The same classmates who strutted in with arrogance now sat deflated in their designer clothes. Their champagne tasted flat. Their rehearsed stories of success felt like cheap echoes compared to Ethan's truth. The whispers that once mocked him had turned into murmurs of regret. They couldn't stop replaying the memory of the quiet boy they had ridiculed. The boy who wore worn-out sneakers, the one they laughed at when he couldn't afford field trips, the one who ate cold sandwiches alone in the cafeteria. And now, that same boy stood before them as a man who had achieved more than all of them combined. Shame washed over the room, but Ethan wasn't done yet. Ethan left the stage, but instead of blending into the crowd, he walked to the back of the room, near the windows overlooking the city skyline. He stood there for a moment, taking it all in. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same city lights that once symbolized dreams far out of his reach now glittered below his feet. He thought of the nights he walked home from double shifts, shoes soaked in rain, hunger gnawing at his stomach. He thought of how many times he whispered to himself that he would never be the loser they believed he was. This night wasn't just a reunion. It was a full circle moment. He had walked back into the very circle that once excluded him, not for validation, but as proof that he had built a life so powerful, their judgments no longer mattered. Slowly, classmates began to approach him. Some were hesitant, embarrassed to even make eye contact. Others plastered on fake smiles, hoping to slide into his good graces. They praised his speech, complimented his success, acted as though they had always believed in him. But Ethan could read every look, every forced grin. He knew who had mocked him in gym class. He knew who had laughed at his thrift store jeans. He knew who had whispered trash when he walked past. Now those same people treated him like royalty. But it didn't move him. He wasn't here for them. As the night wore on, the truth unfolded. Ethan hadn't come to the reunion just to reveal his success. He hadn't come to bask in their shock or to rub their faces in regret. No, he came for something deeper, something personal. Because behind every cruel laugh and every insult, there had been one small act of kindness that changed the course of his life. And tonight, he wanted to honor it. Back in high school, while the majority of his classmates mocked him, there had been one person who showed compassion. Grace Miller. She wasn't popular. She wasn't a cheerleader or part of the football crowd. She was quiet, kind, and often overlooked. But one day, when Ethan had been shoved in the hallway and his books scattered, she knelt down and helped him pick them up. She didn't laugh. She didn't sneer. She simply smiled and said he didn't deserve the way they treated him. That small moment, so simple yet so powerful, had been etched into Ethan's heart forever. It had reminded him that not everyone was cruel. that kindness could exist even in the darkest places. And now, years later, he had something to repay. Grace was at the reunion too, sitting quietly near the corner, unnoticed by most. She looked the same, humble, warm, genuine. While others boasted about careers and luxury vacations, she sat content, sipping her drink, unbothered by the competition around her. Ethan walked over. The crowd followed, curious, watching closely. They wondered why the millionaire CEO, the man of the night, would bother with someone they barely remembered. But when Ethan stopped at her table, the truth became undeniable. He hadn't forgotten. Because sometimes it isn't the cheers of the crowd you remember. It's the one voice of kindness in the storm. And tonight, Ethan revealed his true purpose. He wasn't just here to shock the ones who mocked him. He was here to uplift the one who never did. The classmates, still reeling from their shame, watched as Ethan announced his plans. He had established a scholarship fund under Grace's name, one that would pay full tuition for underprivileged students at Westbridge High. Every year, kids who reminded him of his younger self, the ones who were ignored, underestimated, or struggling, would now have the chance to pursue their dreams without carrying the weight of financial struggle. It wasn't about money. It was about rewriting the story for others like him, and the twist cut deeper than revenge ever could. While his arrogant classmates sat frozen in guilt, Ethan chose not to punish them with spite, but to shame them with compassion. He turned their cruelty into fuel for change, and in doing so, reminded everyone in that room that success wasn't just about wealth, it was about impact. As the night ended, Ethan left the reunion just as he entered, quietly, without fanfare. But this time, he wasn't the invisible boy. He was the man who owned the room. He walked past the classmates who once called him worthless, leaving them to drown in their own regret. The irony was heavy. They had gathered tonight to flaunt their successes, but the only story anyone would remember was his. The reunion wasn't just a night of nostalgia. It was a reckoning, and for Ethan, it was closure. The story of Ethan Walker wasn't just about revenge. It was about rising above cruelty, about turning pain into power, about remembering that kindness, no matter how small, can plant a seed that grows into something extraordinary. It was about how arrogance fades, but resilience lasts. About how the tables always turn, and the ones who laugh last aren't the loudest in the room, but the ones who refuse to give up. Because at the end of the day, success isn't measured by how many people doubted you. It's measured by how you use your success to uplift others.